So it sort of goes back, yeah, to the motivation for your scheme. If there are equitable kind of elements in there, you need to build that into your model. Is that something, Jimmy, that TFGM have been able to do now that you've taken on more of the role for designing the scheme, whereas before you were on very much this concession model that left a lot of that control elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately we'll be able to, from the whatever options are provided to us, we'll be able to, choose something that is a bit more, yeah, wider to access. And I think in the presentation there was, reference to not just being smartphone accessible and it not just being people that have credit cards. And I think Mark makes a point in the chat about the Glasgow scheme. I think that's one. It's a really good example of the Bikes for All stuff they've got going up there, which is kind of, although the scheme itself doesn't necessarily offer those opportunities, there's sort of an interface or a supporting organisation that provides access to a wider range of people who maybe don't have access to a bank account or a card that can be used to facilitate access, which I think is quite a useful way of approaching it, probably.
One of the other things that I sort of noticed as well was we had some chat about the messaging that sort of fits around bike hire, and sort of splitting between the emphasizing how easy it is and efficient and straightforward versus the sort of strenuous exercise and health benefits. And lots of people will cycle for different reasons and they might use it for different trips. So there probably is always going to be some complicated messaging. Is there a way that we can navigate that better with the things we know or learn through for bike hire in the future? I'll leave that open. Someone jump in, hopefully.
I think, can I take that? I think it's
go ahead.
I think it's really important to think about that. I think there's often a danger that cycling is perceived as something that you have to be really like fit and active to do. And actually what's more important from my point of view is that being able to build activity into people's kind of daily routines and kind of normal life. And I think that's the sort of thing that bike share and other micromobilities allow people to do. And I think there's a danger, yeah, if you talk about kind of, sorry, I can't remember the term that the commenter uses, Peter Cox, about sort of rigorous exercise. Like if you present it as that, then that might be off-putting. But if you talk about building activity into your routines, to me anyway, that's more kind of, that sounds more welcoming and kind of inclusive.
Yeah, certainly kind of pushing that message or keeping that at the forefront. I also noticed, and perhaps this is maybe probably our final question, but maybe we can talk about the actual the technology. We're proposing now to move towards probably predominantly docked systems when we've already experienced a dockless system, which seems to be the direction of travel. So not just to doing this in a backwards fashion, or have we learned something from our experience of dockless? And maybe also are we incorporating some of the conflicts with other pedestrians or with those who have visual impairments or partially sighted members of the community, the way that the dockless versus the docked system interact, or and how other users, or maybe in the future other technologies like scooters, fit in on our streets. Maybe Jimmy has some thoughts. Pushing you off the spot. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I think it's really interesting, especially from some old colleagues at TFL, and they have this interesting experience of, starting with a dock scheme and then dockless stuff coming along, and then having how people use the TFL scheme, which is still docked, and they found that, for instance, the bike's being left around because users presume they can leave it anywhere like they would a mobike. They incur the usage charge and that kind of stuff. And the way we're trying to approach it is just trying to be flexible, really. So recognizing that the technology is available, most bike hire providers will be able to provide both a docked and dockless solution. So I think the approach we're taking in Manchester at the beginning is that we recognise there were some challenges and maybe a bit of a hangover from mobike around the dockless idea. But as the scheme gets embedded, then I don't think there's any reason why it wouldn't potentially expand to be more of a hybrid or semi-dockless in some locations, because that, I think particularly with around that, and I found it myself, when you try and return a bike to a fully docked station, there's nothing worse for the user experience than that, because that's when crunch time, isn't it? If you're trying to rush to get a train or go somewhere and you have to find something else. So there's definitely an answer, the way of the bike hire providers suggesting that as a good alternative or a good option to make the scheme better experience for people using it. So I think it's a hybrid, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so maybe we're creating a new model. We're not going backwards, which is positive. Anyone from the Salford team who want to comment on this?
Yeah, just to reiterate what I said before, I think the hybrid idea is what people want overall. They need both types of system, especially if they want to use it with public transport. I think we need to think of all of the modes in conjunction. It's not just adding a bike share scheme, it's developing a city which is much more car free. And so it's how you lock all of those together, and you need both docked and dockless because people's travel habits are so diverse.
Which sort of takes us back to the Death Star diagram that Jimmy introduced us to, our network. I'm conscious of the time, so I'll thank everyone for their contributions and for the questions. I thought it was really interesting to read along, and then to hopefully I've done some justice to the things you asked, and I'll hand back over to Luke.
Okay, thanks, Sam. And yeah, this is just the point where I'd like to extend a thanks to everyone who's taken part today. So I'd just like to thank Sam, Nick, Graham and Mags for their contribution, and of course I'd like to thank Jimmy for his contribution and taking the time from today to come from TFGM to speak a little bit about GM's future bike share scheme. I'm sure I'm not the only one who would say I've thoroughly enjoyed the presentations today, but also so exciting to see the future of the GM bike share scheme and how that's all going to sort of be rolled out over the next couple of years. And of course, last but not least, well, thank you very much to everyone who's attended. It's our 12th seminar today, so it's the end of our second year, I think, officially. And we're excited to get into our third year starting in September, October. We'll probably start organising our next webinar. Stay in touch via follow us on Twitter or visit our website, and I'll make sure to share the details of our next webinar via the mailing list as well. But until then, I hope everyone stays healthy and safe, and thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope that we speak to each other soon. So enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.